Good evening, my dear students. Welcome to the sports program that we are beginning today. I'm very confident that your classes through Microsoft Teams are going very well, and we hear excellent reports. But I'm sure every one of you must be missing sports, the playing field, and that's the area that you enjoy very much. And we as a school that has a focus on sports and as a school that values sports, we feel deeply about what you're missing out. But just like in your studies, we are trying our very best to make sure that we do whatever we can to support you in every possible way. We've done that with performing arts through our virtual Aurdu and virtual Vesak. But from today, I'm sure you will enjoy our sports program. And today, I'm very happy to inform you that we have Mr. Aravinda De Silva, the cricketing legend of Sri Lanka. Many consider Aravinda to be the best batsman Sri Lanka has ever produced. And Sri Lanka, if you remember, won the World Cup back in 1996. And Aravinda was the person who was largely responsible for that victory. And today, you will hear a lot about Aravinda's cricketing life and the experiences. And I'm sure, in as much as you may enjoy, I'm sure you will be able to learn a lot as well. But to begin with, we are going to play a little video to bring back those golden memories of Aravinda De Silva. Many remember Aravinda's century and the 3 wickets he took and becoming the man of the match at the World Cup final. But to me personally, as someone who has very closely associated Aravinda, to me, I think the more important match during that World Cup tournament was the semi-final. Leading up to the semi-final, if you remember, we had 2 openers, Sanath Jayasuriya and Romesh Kaluwitharana, who were playing very well, and they were getting runs at will, and in almost all matches they came up with a very good opening partnership. But that particular semi-final that was played in Calcutta in India, something strange happened. Within the first over, both Romesh Kaluwitharana and Sanath Jayasuriya were out, and Aravinda had to go in as number 3. And many were wondering as to what Aravinda would do, because we couldn't afford to lose any wickets, and Aravinda had to do something in his own way. Let's watch what Aravinda did when he walked in, when he had to walk in almost when the score was 2 wickets down for 0.
Oh, he's got that away. That's off the edge. No slip in position, so that's for the first boundary to the Sri Lankans. Well, that's a good shot. That's beautifully played. That's 2 boundaries in a row. That's a lovely shot. This is a fast outfield. Don't. Beautifully played. That's 4. Take that. This is a tremendous temperament. Off the edge, and that'll go for 4, I think. Yes, it will. It's a thick edge, no slips in there. And that's the second one that Aravinda De Silva has managed to get away fine. You can't get Sonny to say that because he's from Bombay. I mean, I don't know what your top ground is, but feel rather like trying to get Bill Laurie to say that the Sydney Cricket Ground's the best one in Australia. He's got that away for 4. Well, there's no fine leg. They've decided to sacrifice the fine leg in order to get themselves another deep fieldsman on the offside. Anything that beats the man short on the leg side is going to go for 4.
Well, they've obviously forgotten that Aravinda De Silva is one of the happy hookers in the game. Anything short, he likes to get under it and hook it in the air. He's not the kind of batsman who likes to roll his wrists over it and play it along the ground. He likes to get under the short pitch ball.
Oh, he's got that away too. That could go all the way. Just short, is it? Yes, one bounce for 4. Well, they're going along at over 5 and over.
For a leg spinner.
That's beautifully played by De Silva through the offside. This outfield is like lightning. 4 runs.
Shot. Again on the rise. A bit of width outside off stump.
Both the openers back in the pavilion in the first over. Oh, he's pulled that one out from outside the off stump and smashed it through square leg. Again, played away beautifully on the onside. This time by Aravinda De Silva. Ball might just go all the way to the fence. It does. It just was a push. The ball really raced away to the fence. And De Silva on strike. And that's beautifully played through the covers for 4 runs. And what a way to bring up his 50.
Well, there's no wonder everybody's applauding. That was a fine half-century. They've had to get a perfect line and a perfect length because there's been very little movement. Just hits through the line a little early, but no problem. Just skates along it so fast, the outfield.
Giving too many runs, and then again a couple against Zimbabwe. And this has been beautifully stroked away. Square of the wicket on the offside by Aravinda De Silva for 4 more runs. And driven this time through the covers again by De Silva. Jadeja giving chase, but gives it up for 4 more runs.
Bowl it nice and tight into the right-hander. Oh, ball in! That's beautifully bowled. Middle stump is out the ground. Anil Kumble has once again delivered for the Indians. Clever tactics by the Indian captain, Mohammad Azharuddin. And that's a beautiful delivery. The middle stump is lying flat.
Just look at the jubilant crowd. Absolutely delighted at the wicket of De Silva. Big blow for Sri Lanka. De Silva, rather tentative on that one. Getting a slight inside edge. And knocking his middle stump. A beautiful delivery by Kumble. Ball drifting into the batsman and going straight through.
What a blow. Aravinda De Silva has played a little gem of an innings. 66 or 47 balls. He was definitely the danger man. He's been removed.
60 odd in 47 balls. And in fact, many were wondering whether he was too aggressive, because we certainly couldn't afford to lose Aravind at that stage. But I'm sure he would have had his reason. So let's begin by asking Aravind as to why he decided to kind of be so aggressive, especially when 2 wickets were down and both openers who were doing so well were in the pavilion, as to why he decided to take that route. Aravind?
Okay. Thanks a lot and good evening, everyone. Thanks a lot for inviting me for this session. And I think watching that, you just brought back some memories almost 25 years ago. And I think it was a moment which I cherish very much. And also for Sri Lanka cricket, I think that was one of the greatest moments because of the fact that we were able to beat a side like India at a time where we thought they were probably one of the best and the hardest teams to beat in their own country. And more so, the kind of crowd support they had. They had almost 120,000 capacity inside the ground and about another 150,000 outside the ground. So I think that was a day which I cherish very much, and up to today, it's been an unforgettable moment.
Aravind, Aravinda, basically that match, if you remember, the wicket played a very decisive role. And if you didn't get that runs earlier on in the game, do you think it would have been a problem later on?
Well, I think it was a tussle for us to make a decision whether to first, and I think the previous night we were contemplating so hard, and except for a couple of guys, rest of the guys preferred to chase because we have been winning and doing very well in the previous games by chasing. So I think our intention was to win the toss and then put them in, and I think fortunately we lost that toss and India put us in. And on that wicket, when we saw the wicket in the morning, it was a little bit dusty, and we felt that it might take a fair bit of turn towards the latter part of the game. And then when we batted for even only we rest for about 15-20 minutes, and then before the game starts. So as I went in, I just had a wash and came out of the room to get ready, the washroom to get ready. And then I was putting my pads on, and by the time I put my first pad on, we had lost the second wicket. So I had to really rush through getting ready. And then when I walked out, I just heard a huge scream, and that's about it. And I think really to say that at that moment I didn't even watch the game until someone came and said that we have lost the second wicket and you are in. So I quickly put my other pad on and just took my gloves and I walked out. And I just heard a huge roar outside. And other than that, I never looked at the scoreboard. So in a way, I think it really didn't put any pressure on me to look at a scoreboard and think we are 2 wickets down for 0, or to think of any negative situation, because I walked in with a positive mind, and I generally prefer to bat in situations like that, because when the opposition is on top, they tend to attack, and my intention is always to try and take on the opposition. So I thought I might as well carry on the way I have been doing in the past, and the situation really suited me ideally to go out there and do what I know best. And they had an attacking field, and I thought the best form of defense was to attack and to go out there and play my natural game. And I think getting off to that sort of start with the new ball was a huge advantage, because we managed to get up to 241, which I thought was a very, very good score on that wicket, because earlier on with the new ball, if a batsman gets set, you tend to make it a big score, and then once you lose a couple of wickets, when the wicket is turning, it becomes very, very hard to try and start a new inning. So we always felt that getting 241 was a good score, and then if we had got a couple of early wickets, we were in with a very, very good chance to win the game.
Okay. So next was the big game, which was the World Cup final, which was played in Lahore. And for Sri Lankans, I'm sure, my dear students, you wouldn't have remembered, you all would have been very small, but I'm sure your parents would remember, many of them. It was probably the biggest day of Sri Lanka. People were so excited because Sri Lanka reached the World Cup final. It was like a dream. And well, what happened on that day was amazing, because we were playing Australia, and Australia was considered to be the most competitive side. And it had to be, people like Aravinda, Arjuna, who had to lead from the front. Let us just see what Aravinda did at the World Cup final.
Oh, he's got that away. That's off the edge. No slip in position, so that's 4. He's whacked that away over the top of it on one bounce and over the fence for 4. Slow one. He's hit that beautifully. That's a magnificent shot. Aravinda De Silva is playing a gem of an innings. Oh, he's hit that one through the field as well. That's a magnificent shot by Aravinda again. And it's 4. And that's a beauty as well. What a shot. Oh, beautifully played. That's a great century. A great century made when the chips were down. After all those years battling away, this is going to be the big prize for them. That's it, all the way to the boundary for 4. What a victory for the Sri Lankans. A fantastic effort by them. Their players are charging out onto the ground. The Aussies shaking them by the hand.
Okay, we still remember with pride that memorable day, and World Cup, unfortunately, we have not been able to get the highlights of everything that Aravinda did. What you just saw was only the century he got, and in addition, he held a few catches and in fact got 3 vital wickets, and he became the man of the match of the final. That was the thing that really changed cricket in Sri Lanka. People who did not know about Sri Lanka started to talk about Sri Lanka. There was a massive change. And Aravinda, I must tell you, in addition to his cricketing skills, there are many things that you should learn from him, my dear children, and that is the love and respect he has for his parents and his teachers. So this picture shows spectators who were, I believe, very special to Aravinda. And if I remember right, they both arrived the previous night, and due to lack of accommodation, they had gone and been in Aravinda's room. So Aravinda had little sleep, I believe, the day before, and he went on to a long inning and won the game. And I still remember Mr. Alice, my father and your founding father, coming and telling me, Puta, I couldn't believe after he received the Man of the Match award from Benazir Ali Bhutto, he came down the podium, he kept the trophy aside, and he went down and worshipped both Uncle Sam and me. The people who were watching, the media, they were stunned. But by doing that, Aravinda showed true Sri Lankan spirit, and above all, he showed that you could be the champion. You could be a champion, but you still have to live your values. So Aravinda, just explain to us about the experience of winning the World Cup and you know the things that you would young students.
Yeah, I think as I mentioned earlier, that particular tournament in 1996 was a game changer for Sri Lanka cricket and also for the country in whole, because it was during the time we had a civil war going on, and in fact I used to we had a lot of friends who were in the army, and then they used to tell us how even the LTTs used to call during that time and have told them, look, during the World Cup final, there won't be any fighting. We all want to watch the match, and that really says something how a sport like cricket in our country can bring communities together and also not have divisions within the country. So when I talk about, Harsha spoke about Mr. Alice and my father being there, and I must say it was a real surprise to me because there was a very, very dear friend of mine who at the time told me that I have got a surprise for you. And then when I asked him what it was, he didn't want to mention it. And then suddenly in the evening, I saw Mr. Alice and my father at my hotel room door outside my room, knocking on the door around 8 o'clock in the evening. So it was really a huge surprise to me, because actually until that time I never had any pressure to go out there and perform, and I always told myself I'll just go out there and do my best. But when both of them came and said we are here to watch the game, I realized, and then they mentioned that one of my friends who said he's got a surprise had bought 2 air tickets for them to fly with him to watch the finals. And I'm ever so grateful to him even today for doing that, because these 2 gentlemen were 2 people who really helped me to be what I am today. And my father, from a very, very young age, helped me, guided me, and supported me in everything what I wanted to do. But thereon, we spent a lot of time as kids in school, and Mr. Alice, who was like a second father to me, actually helped me again when I was in school, supported me all the way. And when there were instances where there were hard decisions to be made, because at the age of 13 years, when Mr. Walter Pereira wanted me to play in the first 11 team, it was a tough decision, and Mr. Alice was approached, and when he asked my father whether it's okay, my father said it's not up to me, it's up to the coach and the school to decide. And I was fortunate enough to get that opportunity to be representing the first 11 at a very, very young age, which meant that I was able to grasp and understand what exactly was needed at the highest level, because we had, at the time, we had 2 of the best coaches in the country, not at school level, but in the country at the national level, because they were 2 coaches who were coaching the national team at the time. So we were able to understand at that very young age what exactly was needed at the highest level, and we tend to mature that much quicker, because we were doing things what a national cricketer was doing at the age of 11 years. So that really helped, and I think the credit must go to Mr. Alice for being a visionary and looking at that opportunity and getting the best for the school at the time. And the chance I got to represent the first 11 at 13 or 14 years was an opportunity which not many people would have got. And I just keep saying this over and over again. If I was at a school like St. Thomas's or Royal College, I'm telling you, at that time would have been a prestigious school, but I would never have been able to represent the first 11 at that age, because they would have always wanted to give the opportunity to players who were always wanting to play a Royal Thovian and leave the school. Whereas Mr. Alice's thing was that he always advised the coaches and instructed them that I don't want to win tournaments, neither do I want too much competition, but I want is good human beings, discipline, and people who can represent the country and contribute to the country. So I think that was the vision he had, and I think his ambition was to try and produce a few cricketers to represent the country, which he did during his time. And those cricketers went on to make great heights at international cricket. And one person whom I should really mention at this stage is Siriparan, Siriparan Iyer, who was actually my captain when I was playing first 11 at the age of 13 years. I must say that he was someone who I think had more talent than myself, but he was very, very unfortunate because he had to pursue a career with the Navy during the war, and unfortunately he was unable to spend that much time focusing on the game. But if he continued, I think he would have been one of the players who would have gone on to even captain Sri Lanka and played for Sri Lanka for a long, long time. So I think that is the reason why I think respect is important, because there are coaches along the way who guided me and our cricketers, whom I think a lot of credit should go to, because their aim was always for us to do the best and to perform to the best of our ability, not to compete within the teammates, always to support them, and which I think really helped during this World Cup final, because it was a great team effort. People say that you're the one who won the World Cup, but I don't think so, because there are very, very important little contributions which ultimately makes it for you to win a big. I think contributions will make you achieve that bigger goal, and that happens in a work environment, any team sport, any working environment. That is the key. And if I am to give an example, in the quarterfinals, because without winning the quarterfinal, we would never be in there playing in the semis or the finals. During the quarterfinal, I remember Upul Chandana, when he came onto the field, he for 2 overs, when Vasi went in to change his boots, he was on the field, and there was 2 batsmen, English batsmen batting, Graham Hick and Alex Stewart, who were the 2 best players against spin, and we were dependent more on spin at the time. And when they were batting, in one particular over, out of the 2 overs he was on the field, 1 over, he, as the 12th man, he made 3 extraordinary stops and prevented 3 singles, and that put so much pressure on the batsman. And the next over, Alex Stewart played a rash shot and he got out, and same thing happened to Graham Hick, and we got those 2 wickets at a very, very crucial time when he was on the field and put that little bit of pressure on the field. So even a 12th man, the kind of contribution they can make during a game on the field is immense. So immediately after that, they didn't get to a very big score, but at the end of the day, chasing that 220 odd on that wicket batting second was something very, very tough. And we managed to scrape through those. Sanath got an 80 odd earlier on. Again, like the Indians, we had to really struggle and fight hard to try and get those runs. So the key here is for winning was for us to work as one, support each other, and always enjoyed every other person's success. And I think that was the key for us to win that World Cup and bring glory to our country.
Yes, I think he spoke about the lead up to the final, but around that time, I think Australia was considered to be unbeatable, and they were a very strong outfit. And I also remember it was a couple of years ago, or just the year before, that we had the unfortunate incident of Muralidharan being called by two Aussie umpires. So I think the team in general, I think, had this, determination of somehow winning the World Cup. And I think when Australia reached the final, I think your challenge was even more. So how did you plan? I mean, what kind of strategy did you put in place along with Arjuna in going for the World Cup final?
Well, I think there again, I think for any cricketer or any human being, the most important thing is self-confidence and believe in your ability. I think when I mentioned about team effort and all that, around that, after the 95 tour of Australia and the success we had there as a team, we as a group felt so much more confident and had so much more belief in ourselves. And actually, in my case, it was a huge turnaround after my 1995 season with Kent, which really made the difference in my career, because up till then, even I had a certain amount of doubt in my ability. But after that stint with Kent, I really, after playing against so many international cricketers, which we didn't get the opportunity to do so when we played international cricket, because unlike nowadays, those days we used to play one test match in about 3 to 4 months, whereas nowadays they play right through, they play 4 or 5 test matches in 2-3 months. And for the year, they play 10 to 15 test matches, whereas it took me about 6 years to play about 8 or 9 test matches. So when you talk about exposure and being exposed to competition, to the world, understanding individuals, and mixing around with different cultures, you tend to realize what some of the strengths you have. And Kent was one very good example, because at that time, when I was invited, I was the first international Sri Lankan player to go and represent a county in the UK. So it was a great opportunity again for me. And when I got there, I had a lot of doubt because I thought it was an alien sort of world for me to go and compete. But it took about a month or month and a half for me to settle in. I really struggled in the first month or so. And I always felt that whoever the opposition we played against was much better than myself. So there was a little bit of doubt in my ability and my faith. But as time went on, I tend to realize, when I mixed around and started talking to some of my teammates, I realized that they're just like us, human beings, and they talk the same language. They might have an accent, but they talk the same language. They think the same way. But confidence-wise, sometimes when they came and asked me questions, I felt, oh my God, these guys are also learning. So why am I thinking that this guy is better than myself? So then suddenly things change. After the first month, I started to build more confidence in myself, started to feel at ease playing in that sort of atmosphere. And then suddenly got into the groove, and then went on to get almost 2,000 runs during that season, and was one of the highest run scorers for the last 5 or 6 years in a number of games. So that really turned my entire career around. And every time I walked in and I played against, because a lot of the internationals who played against me represented other countries. So even when I came across them, they were the top players of the other countries. Really didn't undermine myself to think that I was at least less talented than any of them. So I went out there always thinking that I was probably the best and that I can take on anyone. So that the sort of spirit I actually took into the 96 team also when we went in and played against Pakistan immediately after that. Then things changed. Then I realized, okay, as a team, we have to work together. And the team also started to believe in each other, which is very, very helpful. And then to understand their strengths, because everyone has a different strength and we need to use it at the right time. So, for example, if we had a strike bowler and a great bowler like Muralidharan, so we knew exactly when to use him and to bring him on. And then people like Kumar Dharmasena, who's steady and who will bowl and control an innings, at what sort of time to bring them on, and Vasi, what his strength was and where we should use him. And in the batting lineup, we understood the two openers, what we should tell them and the kind of freedom we should give them to go out there and do their best. So understanding all those things is also very important, and believing in your ability and understanding each individual. So, for example, when I used to bat with Sanath and Kalu, I know both of them like to hit the ball and hit boundaries. So I would like to and look to take the single and give them the strike when I bat with them. But then every time I bat with Asanka, he's a guy who takes a while to settle down, and especially in the first 15 overs, he tends to take a lot of deliveries playing dot balls. So then when I bat with him, I try to hit the boundaries without taking too many risks and try and push the single in the 5th ball or the 6th ball to take the strike again and have more deliveries in the next over. So I try to adapt my game according to the person whom I was batting with. So to understand, because I understood their strengths, and when I bat with Arjuna, I just push the single and I know the next ball he will again push a single and give me, so we don't have to take risks to take 6 runs and over. We just rotate the strike. Roshan was the same. So similarly, understanding each other's strength is also very important when it's a team game, because those are the things which makes it easier for you also to adapt and do what your role is, and to do it properly and perfect it, and to be focused on what exactly you have to do to contribute towards the team.
I think a lot of life lessons as well. He spoke about his stint in Kent, and you, my dear students, you all are planning to go out and explore the world, especially when it comes to your higher education. But what is important is to bring all that experience back home. So that's what Aravinda mentioned, that he, through his stint in Kent, he learned a lot. He realized that we are no different, that we could do even better. And he learned everything, and with that experience, he brought it back and made Sri Lanka proud. Then he spoke about the value of understanding one another in a team, because no one person can do things the way he or she wants, right? So team skills are absolutely important. I think we have got this rare opportunity of talking to Aravinda while he's at home. And I would kindly request from Aravinda now to show the collection of memorabilia that he has, including the bat that he used to score that beautiful century. Aravinda, would you be kind enough to show us some of your memorabilia?
Okay, so you want to know the bat I used.
Yes.
If you look at that Kookaburra bat, which is in the middle there, That's the one I used during the World Cup, and the shirt I wore is right on top there, on the left-hand side corner, top.
Okay.
And the stump, the World Cup stump and the pad I wore is there at the end there.
Great. Thank you. And I think your jersey that you wore in Kent, I think that is also there, right? Next to.
Yeah, that's my first day-night shirt and the last one, and that's a Kent shirt. And when you go on to the other side, there's Sachin's 96 shirt and all my World Cup shirts are on top. The 5 World Cups I represent. I couldn't find the one in 1987 because that was too long ago, and I had no memorabilia from that time. I was too young to. My father is the one who collected all these. I used to leave all my trophies in Pakistan, what I won, because those days we couldn't afford to pay for excess luggage, so we used to leave the trophies in Pakistan and come because they were too heavy.
Right. Okay. All right. So, all right. We can also show the photograph that Aravinda spoke of, at least not the photograph, the 2 special spectators he had for the World Cup final. We'll show you that photograph now. And there you can see, Mr. Sam De Silva, Aravinda's father, and Mr. R.I.T. Alice, who were present at the game. Aravinda, can I mean, we saw some magnificent shots that you played at the World Cup final and the semi-final. I would like to know who were your cricketing mentors and what are your favorite shots? And if you can at least show us 2 of your favorite shots, because we would like our children to look at those shots, learn from them. We have also kind of set up an app where children can actually practice those shots, film with their camera and upload, so that the coaches also can see what they have learned. So if you can be kind enough to kind of give us a little overview of, as to who your mentors were and as to what your favorite shots and as to how you approach them. Aravind, you're on mute.
Okay, my all-time favorite cricketer and idol was Viv Richards, who I think was one of the greatest ever to step onto a cricket field. And as a kid, he was someone whom I would pay money to go and watch, and or take time off anything to go and watch him in action. And of course, there are a lot of other cricketers, but I don't know whether these kids have seen Viv Richards in action, because if not, I think you should go to YouTube and watch some of these matches of his long years back, from the 1975 World Cup onwards, and an innings he played in 1971. In fact, actually in the last 1.5 months, I've been quarantined at home, and believe it or not, I have watched more than 50 clips of Viv batting in the last maybe 60 days or so. So for me to even at this sort of stage of my life to watch someone of that caliber gives me so much pleasure, and I think the kind of bowling he had to face, and the kind of arrogance he used to walk in with, the confidence, and never wore a helmet, and you could see how he took on some of the greatest fast bowlers of all time, and how he hooked them out of the grounds in several occasions. That being one of my favorite shots. Hook shot has been one of my trademark shots, and one of my favorite ones as well. And the other one is the cover drive, and those are the two which, if you master, then people will find it difficult to bowl at you, because anything short, if you go across and pull it, then they tend to bowl it up, and if you can drive through the balls which are pitched up to you, and then the bowlers will always find a very, very tight length to bowl at you regularly. So do you want me to show the two shots, is it?
Yes, please.
I don't have a bat though. How do you want me to do this? It's
I think you need. Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. So this once you're on your stance, when you judge the length of the ball very quickly, and then my initial movement will be back and across, and then you hook if the ball is above your shoulder, then you try to get inside that and hook it outside and hit it out of the grounds. But if you want to hit it along the ground, then you have to come down on the ball, which is sometimes a little bit difficult, but that you do when you're pulling, and that pulling you do right in front of you, and then you pull and you hit it past mid wicket. And if you want to hook, you go get inside the delivery and then hook it more finer outside over the boundary. And the other one is the cover drive, and then subsequently what happens is when you pull and cut and pull well, they tend to bowl up to you, and then what you do is when the ball is pitched up, you try to drive it with a straighter bat, and those two shots, if you master and you play close to your body, and you have to get your feet closer to the ball so that you don't allow the ball to move around too much. You get near the ball and then hit it through the gap wherever you want to. You look at the placement, and that again, when you're playing a cover drive, you can always turn the wrist to find the gap, and wherever the gaps are, you try to turn the wrist and take the blade towards the gap, and that's what I tend to do. It's a hard thing to do at a very young age, but you just try to hit the ball well, and then you will learn from after a lot of practicing, you'll be able to keep some cones and hit it into the gaps, and then that is how you would learn to find the gaps.
Okay. Thank you very much, Aravind. Aravind, if you can mute your mic. Yeah. Thank you, children. You saw two of his favorite shots. I think the best is to go back and see those clips. They are available on YouTube, the semi-final and the final. And what he just presented to you, you could see many of those cover drives and hooks if you see those games. And if you play slow motion, I'm sure you'll be able to learn a lot. And once you go through them, right, and just try to see whether you could practice that, and then get someone to record it, right, and put it on the website. if you go to our website, which Surani, who is moderating this session, okay, Mrs. Surani Maitripala is going to show you. Now she's on the college web page, the home page. And when you go down, we've created something called online sports program. And if you click on that, you will see all the sessions that we are going to have. In fact, we have given you the sessions up to the end of May. And you could basically go to the Flipgrid link that is given there and upload what you do to that link so that the coaches can go through and give you, some kind of further assistance. So we've had a long discussion with Aravinda, but I'm sure there must be many people who like to ask a few questions. Our time is limited. I must really thank Aravinda for spending so long. But can we take a few questions so that basically at least a few we will try to manage. You're free to type in your questions. Surani will just explain to you as to how you could type your questions in, and thereafter we'll take a few questions.
Good evening, everyone. On your right, there is a panel with a few icons. If you click on the icon with a question mark, you should be able to type in your question and we will ask.
First question, of course, I can say no, for sure, no.
You'll have to, Surani, I think it's good for you to read out the questions. Yeah.
I will read it out. So we have one question which says, will a cricketing great and education great join politics? Aravinda and Harsha.
I have given the answer already. I said, for sure, no.
So it's a joint statement, and for sure.
Next question. When did Aravinda
2003. 2003, after the last World Cup in 2003.
Sir, how did you manage your life after retiring from cricket? Did you start planning for it early on?
Well, I was always into my own business, so I continued that, and today I am involved with an organization called the Ideal Group.
Sir, it is such an honor to speak to you. Can you please tell me how many centuries you have hit?
Test centuries, or is it test centuries or first class?
It does not say.
Both, is it?
Yeah.
Must be about 60 odd, I think. 60 odd. I'm not too sure of the records. I know test centuries are about 20 or 21. I'm not too sure that.
When you look back at your career, what are the highs and what are some of the lows in your career?
Yeah, well, I think 96 was definitely a high, but that again is a very, very good question, because I think to get to 1996 and have that high, I think from 1984 when I started my career up till then, there was a lot of lows, and that is something which is very important, because for children to understand that failure is important, and the most important thing is through those failures, if you learn something out of it, that is what will ultimately bring you the necessary joy and the success. Because if you learn from those and put it to practice, I think that is where the learning curve helps. And I think during that career, I can talk about so many instances where when I was betting in that final, I thought of those moments to tell myself, okay, this is a mistake I did in that game and we lost the match because my mind said do this. And quickly I managed to change gear and try to not take that risk. And then similarly, I think in situations we had brought in a different bowler at a time, and we didn't want to make that same mistake in those important games. So keeping your nerve and also remembering some of those moments constantly, because if some of those moments have really hurt you, that will leave a scar and you will not forget those moments. And it's very, very important to remember those moments, and that's why they say failures are a pillar of success. Because my uh, to give you an example, my daughter in her O-levels uh, suddenly walked out of her room at about 11 o'clock when the results were announced, screaming and crying. So we were really worried, thinking that she had failed the exam. And she was very upset that she got 8 A's and 1 B. So this is something which I don't advocate, because at a young age I would have preferred for her to have 4 passes and 5 C's, because if you, of course, education is important and working hard is important, but expectations are there, but you work very hard. But if you don't get that expectation, you have to make sure that you work harder and try and work on those strengths. But and similarly, my son this time got 6 A's and he was devastated. He didn't come out of the room for 2 days and 3 B's. So I think these are not very good signs for a youngster, because if you fail in certain areas, I think you must make up your mind to make sure that the next time you will put in that extra effort and try and do what is necessary to achieve that. And when you are young, you can make these mistakes and come out of it. There'll be people to guide you, help you. But once you're old, if you haven't gone through these situations, once you fail, that is when people sometimes get into depression. So one thing, remember, you work hard. Of course, you want to try and do the best and not always look at the other person's results and think, I haven't got as good results as the other person. But you must think, okay, I could have done better. If that is what you think, then you haven't given 100%. If you have given 100%, and whatever you have got is what matters. And you must try and improve on giving and improving your benchmark, not compare with anyone else, because everyone has their different strengths. So you have to improve on your strengths and weaknesses to make sure you get to a proper standard. And that's one advice I can give you.
Aravinda, there is also, is it possible to mute for a second?
Me?
Yes, please.
Yeah.
There's also, I think we'll take about 2 questions. One thing is, when you were small, did you always want to be a cricketer, or did you have other plans? That is one. And if I go down further, basically, and again, moving from that, what was the motivation and at what age did you start playing cricket?
Well, when I was a kid, I don't think like any of you at your age, you would have thought, or I would have thought, that I represented my country and achieved what I have achieved. But I know for sure there was one thing I did. cricket was my passion, and I think growing with your passion and devoting your focus and the effort towards your passion makes a huge difference. And sports was one area I always enjoyed. I played not only cricket, a lot of other sports, tennis, soccer, table tennis, snook, billiards, everything, you name it. I played a lot of sport, and that uh, has been the reason I feel that cricket took me all the way, because from my childhood, that was one sport. If it was on TV, I was glued onto the TV when there was cricket on. I would go and watch cricketers. I would talk to them to find out how they were successful. Not that I knew that I was going to represent my country at that age. So everything happens when you keep doing what you are so passionate about, and also you asked me the question at what age I started. There are photographs of me carrying a bat when I was 2 years old in a cot, and that was, of course, would have been my father's passion to get me to play cricket for Sri Lanka one day. But those are things I think even parents nowadays have. But destiny is such that people want to do different things. Children are wanting to do and get into different areas. I think you need to be focused, and once you have your basic education, which is very, very important up to advanced level, then you need to know what you really want to do and what you're passionate about. I think there's no point in your doing what your parents want you to do. You need to do what you really enjoy and you're passionate about. And I think your chairman, Mr. Alice, also will say that, because he qualified as a doctor but ended up getting into education because that was his passion, and I'm sure he saw his father and it dragged him in that direction. So there are people who motivates you to drag you into certain directions, and mentors, your idols and all that. So I guess that is how it ultimately works out.
Okay. I think we'll take one final question because we've already past 6:30. The last question that we would be taking says, seriously, you won against Aussies? I'm an Australian. I wasn't there at that time. My mother speaks big about Sri Lanka victory when she was in the university. Indeed, it has to be a great moment. Well done. Maybe I want to play for Sri Lanka and bring the trophy back again to Sri Lanka. For that, I have to change my citizenship. Would you mind helping me to become a good player? If you have an academy, please. You have to switch on the mic.
I think I can tell you got one thing right. You want to come back to Sri Lanka and be a Sri Lankan, because I think that's a great thing to start off with. Having an academy, of course, I don't have an academy, but there are enough and more good coaches around. But I think the most important thing is, I don't know how old you are, but from a very, very young age, what you should do is you should start playing the sport with friends. And that is how, because I used to play cricket on the road. In fact, the other day I took my son to see my mother. I went to see my mother, and the roads were empty. And nowadays we have so much more time to drive around, and there's no traffic on the road. So I took my little son, who's 10 years old, and showed him all the places where I used to play cricket. near my mother's house, and I told him to ask my mother what time I used to leave home and come back in the evening. So I used to leave home on Saturdays and Sundays about 6:37 in the morning and would be back around 6:37 when it's just getting dark. And we used to play cricket on the road. I showed him where we used to play on the road, and Roshan, Mahanama, Sanka, Guru Singh, all of them. Roshan used to live close to my place. We used to play on the road. And there were two other little grounds where we put a small little area and play cricket in that little location. And there's a big ground where we play the big games against various teams coming from other parts of Mount Lavinia, and we play competitive games in that ground. So it was a case of finding wherever possible and being outdoors and playing games, which I don't see happening nowadays because most of the children prefer to play cricket on a computer or they have an iPhone with them chatting with few of their friends, and they stay up till 5 o'clock in the morning and they play PUBG or whatever. I don't know, my children, that's what they do. I think those are things which we never had. I don't know, maybe for the better, but I think technology is important, but if you use it the right way. But of course, it's very, very important for you to be out there. If you want to be a sportsman, you need to be outdoors, and that's the reason why South Africans, the West Indians and them produce good cricketers, because they're always on the beach, outdoors with doing a lot of activity. And that is very important for you to be healthy and active as a sportsman.
So thank you very much, Aravinda. It's been a great evening. I am sure the children would have learned so much, not only about cricket, but life's lessons. If they relate to their day-to-day life of what they heard from you, whether it is working as a team or learning skills, being Sri Lankan, and to be determined and never to go down. If you basically in life, you know, you have ups and downs, but never to fall. I'm sure they learn so much from you. Children, unfortunately, we couldn't have Mr. Muralidharan today. Hopefully, we'll have him on another day. But you'll see that, you know, even 1 hour was not enough with someone like Aravinda. So I think it's difficult to fit in two legends also in one session. So hopefully, we'll organize it on another day. But let me, on behalf of the entire Gateway family, thank Aravinda once again. He's been a great cricketer, a hero for Sri Lanka, and a dear friend to me. So thanks a lot, Aravinda, for spending your valuable time this evening talking to our students.
Not at all, my pleasure, and all the very best to all the kids.